He put it nicely. I saw in some interview, he said, I like not being, being almost inarticulate. He's a guy that doesn't speak a lot, Milton. He's a guy that holds everything in, his feelings and his emotions and his words.
Oh my. A UFO has crashed in my backyard, has taken out my azaleas, and destroyed my bird bath.
When you talk like that, it makes them all take us less seriously.
Did you just say UFO?
Marc, it's been I think 5 years or so since I talked to you. I think it was on a movie called The Puzzle with Kelly MacDonald last time we spoke.
You have a good memory. Yes, I remember. Thanks for
good to see you. Where have you been for the past 5 years in terms of directing?
There's this thing called COVID.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of screwed up. Even this movie, Jules, was held up a year because of COVID. And then when we shot, we had masks and face guards and all that on. But we're back, and now I'm thrilled to have Jules come to the theaters.
Wow! So you guys filmed it kind of during the COVID times. This film?
Yeah, towards the end.
Oh wow! So it's been kind of a while now that it's finally.
Yeah, it took me a while, Jim, to find the exact tone for the film. So I edited this longer than I've edited any film, either producing or directing. It took me 10.5 months to edit it. But it's kind of one of those things that it takes what it takes. And we finally got it. And when we got it, we went, yes, we know we've got it right now. But that's so, yeah, we had COVID holding us up, and then we had a long edit process, but very happy with where we ended up.
Well, so the edit, I mean, you got the tone because I totally understood it and it made sense. Seeing some of the previous films you've been involved, Little Miss Sunshine has that vibe of that sorts. What was the tone that you were previously had initially, or how did you end up with this one? Because I feel you got the right one for sure, but through that editing process, those 10+ months, what were you kind of facing in that time?
Well, this is what makes this story so unique, is it's got different elements that don't usually go together.
You're right.
You've got a guy who's aging, who's starting to lose his faculties, and that's emotional. It's not most movies about people like that are depressing. It's not a depressing movie. It's got emotion, but it's not depressing.
Right.
It's not melancholic. It's got a buddy movie about 3 people finding friendship later in life. So it's got a buddy element. It's got a bit of a science fiction element with a 4'11" alien and a ship that lands in the backyard. It's got wild inventiveness that I won't go into all of it spoiling it for those who haven't seen it yet. And it's got great comedy in it, which all of those things don't usually go together. Comedy, science fiction, comedy, age, buddy movie, and so keeping all of that together and being able to allow all of those elements to coexist was the challenge. Even though the actors were amazing, I had to find that balance in the editing room. Thank God I had great editors to help find it with me.
And for those that know, editing can completely change a movie. It's just, few cuts and pieces, and you can really manipulate a film in so many ways. Editing's such a big key that sometimes people don't talk about, or kind of like a hidden thing to make movie magic happen.
Yeah, in this movie in particular, what we ended up doing is shrinking the science fiction element. It could be much bigger, but the heart of the movie was always about these 3 people coming together, and then the daughter and the alien. But it was primarily about these 3 people coming together and finding their voice. It's about a 4'11" alien who doesn't speak, who allows these other people to speak and find their voice and then find connection. And so in the editing room, we had to cut down. That was the heart of it. We had to cut down some of the science fiction element, the chase and all that kind of stuff, because that's not really what the movie was about. It's about the connection of these people. And so it took a while to find that.
You know, it gave me a kick early on because I recently went to like one of those board meetings and stuff that Milton goes here, and those are wild. And, you know, people get into it. It's a fascinating world too. So I kind of enjoyed that. This is where these characters meet in this sort of setting. And it's someone who's done this recently kind of for the first time. I understand it, you know, how people can bond over different things community wise and things that need to be fixed and done. You know what I mean? And having the passion and drive for that too. I thought it was a great choice to have them kind of initially be introduced and you know, form that bond through that.
Yeah, you know, it's the writer, Gavin Steckler. He said that's what inspired him, is that he used to live in LA and now he lives in Spain. But when he was in LA, he used to listen, he said, to these town council meetings. And he was fascinated, and it inspired him because these people would get up, I guess, and talk about the craziest things, and they would repeat themselves sometimes week after week because they just wanted to be heard. That's what started this whole screenplay, and of course, that's a great place to start the story. They're not being heard; they're looked at like they're a little bit crazy, and then by the end of the movie, people are able to communicate, and that's I think that's the story.
Yeah, no, it was a great linking point. You don't see that sort of setup in movies, especially with Dad. But I'm like, that's a real life thing that there's so many people do in their neighborhoods and in communities, you know. So I felt that was a very authentic sort of connecting point and very relatable to these characters too. I could totally see them doing that. So I thought that was a really great sort of entryway.
It's a great entryway, and it sets the tone from people that aren't being heard at all to people who find some connection.
Totally. Whose idea was it for the hair for Sir Ben Kingsley? I almost didn't recognize him early on. I'm like, wait, where's Ben Kingsley coming? Like, oh, that's him. That was it was a great thing because you look at Ben and you just know him. He's got such an iconic face and look, but this threw me off at least a little bit, and it didn't make me think of Ben Kingsley. I just saw the character first, you know, and I thought that was a great little deceptive move, but it didn't remind me that this is Ben Kingsley. It really made me come into the character and think of Milton first and foremost throughout the film.
Yeah, for a guy who's been in, I don't know, 100 movies,
Right. Well,
I've never seen him look like this, or play a character like this and be in a comedy, this comedy with emotion like this before.
True.
And I think that's why when I thought of Milton, I said, no, hair, glasses, that's the character. And then we don't see Ben Kingsley. We see this Milton. And I think that's probably what attracted him to the role as well, because he got the script and then he signed on in 5 days. And that's quick. All the actors read the script and within 5 days said yes. But I think it was for him an opportunity to do something he hasn't done.
No, and I'm glad that he got on board because it really, it's a refreshing sort of thing when sometimes you see iconic actors and you just think of the actor first, but here I was swayed by the character, and you know, just a little move like that changes the perception a lot. So I love that thing. That's why I had to ask you about it, because I thought it was a game changer of sorts, a subtle but important move in that context.
Yeah, he put it nicely. I saw in some interview, he said, you know, I like not being, you know, being almost inarticulate. He's a guy that doesn't speak a lot, Milton. He's a guy that holds everything in, his feelings and his emotions and his words. And it's a different kind of role for a consummate actor who could be the center that everything, you know, revolves around in terms of a bigger performance. But he played it very subtle. And I think that's what all the actors did. They played it for real. And that's what we all agreed on before we started shooting, is let's play it for real. Don't play it for the joke. Okay. Yeah, there's humor. There's humor in it, and there's wild situations. Let the audience find the humor and find the wild situations funny, but don't play it for the joke. And that's what he did, and that's what Jane and Harry, everyone played it like this is real. This is really going on.
I love that. I was just going to ask you that, because the unassuming sort of playing it for the real if they played it differently, this movie would have been a totally different movie, 100% different movie if they played it. And I thought that was the perfect balance for them to play it real, where the outside world thinks everything's crazy for them, you know, that they're being crazy, but they're playing that moment real and authentic. And he's so unassuming. And then it parallels with, you know, the daughter thinking that he's sort of losing his marbles and all that. And just those two dimensions really work just because of those character choices. And I thought otherwise, I don't think it works if they played it any other way. And I thought that was really a big key also to making this movie really feel and be the way it is.
Yeah, otherwise it would have been broad, Jim. It would have been broad. It would have been, you know, they wouldn't have. I love. There's a great old director who said, "I'm not interested in any movie in which the audience doesn't participate." And I love that. And what he meant, you know, is that you got to be able to find the humor yourself, find the meaning yourself, interpret what Jules is thinking yourself. We're not going to tell you what to laugh at. We're not going to tell you what to feel. The music is not going to tell you what the emotion is. It's all going to come. It's going to exist. And then you take from what you're seeing what you will. And to me, that's, I think, the secret to what works when it works in this movie.
There's so many nuances. I wonder sometimes if it's the writer's kind of decision, like the cats, you know, I thought that was a really interesting offbeat, off the wall choice. I was wondering if you guys were considering other animals or other objects or sort of things, because I felt like it became a symbolism, you know, to the story just by that choice.
That was baked into the script. I had nothing to do with it.
Interesting. Once again, these little subtle things, you know, that make you think as a viewer, like, why? That's interesting. You know, it's just offbeat and off the wall, but it works with the story. And I thought it was another very interesting choice. I feel like this film has a lot of subtle choices throughout that really make it come alive throughout. And as an audience member, you can pluck away and kind of see them along the way and wonder.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, a great screenplay. It takes you into places that you don't anticipate. You know, there's a great saying about movies is you want to leave the audience with, give them what they want, but in a way that they don't expect it. And I think this story does that. The screenwriter gives you what you want. You get satisfied, but it's completely not in a way that you could ever have dreamed it would happen. And that's great writing.
Yeah, no, there's definitely imaginative writing by Gavin here in so many ways. Like, and you mentioned now that he took the portrayal of these community sort of events from his own curiosity, and it just works. You know, when you incorporate sort of real life inspirations into a script, it just comes through, and we find it relatable because we're all human and we've experienced sort of these things in our lives.
Kind of stuff.
Yep. You know, I'm just paying attention to this movie and I'm just noticing little things. I'm thinking, boy, does Milton have a huge yard? I'm like, I wonder what he does, you know, because he can house the spaceship there and he's got a lot of land in this neighborhood. I was almost thinking, like, is there a prequel to see what Milton was in his previous life, in a sense, because he's doing well. He's got a nice pad and a great big backyard.
Yeah, you know, it's supposed to be Western Pennsylvania. And so land is cheap. People can have big properties. That's what I thought. And also, practically, I needed a big enough yard that I could land a spaceship in it. And a big enough yard that there wouldn't be any neighbors too close by that could see the spaceship. So you had to think logistically about all of that. But in my mind, and I never said this to Sir Ben, but I thought Milton used to have a hardware store in my mind. It's not in the script. And that he was married and his wife, of course, has died now. But that he was kind of the guy in back, you know, measuring out the chain and the rope when you wanted a piece. And she worked the counter because Milton doesn't speak a lot. He's kind of a quiet, shy guy. And so that was in the back, but I never got a chance to say that to Sir Ben. He had his own picture of what he wanted to do, and I never want to interfere with that.
Oh, I could totally see that, though, the way you describe it now. Yes, you can see Milton in little different incarceration in life, you know, in different situations in life, too, because it's an interesting character. He doesn't speak much, but he's very vocal, though, when he does. So, you know, and very set with his own way. So I kind of like that. He does have that gumption in him, too, to do that. Mark, this just all around, I felt like making a movie like this does definitely take time. And now hearing you talk about the editing process and all it took to do this, it's just sometimes all the pieces have to come together, and you really did with the cast, the story in itself, and the messages from this film too. I feel like there's a real life messages that come through it, whether it's like old age or just people kind of connecting later in life and developing relationships and friendships. I feel like there's really a heart to this story too, aside from the sci-fi part. Was that what you ultimately were going for, to kind of take away a family, but sort of friendship element too, that, just because you age doesn't mean your life is over in a sense. There's still a lot of things you can experience or discover for the first time.
Yeah, Jim, you said it beautifully. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean your life is over. And I think that's key. Every movie I make, I want there to be a message, but it has to be entertaining. And you get the message underneath. You don't have to hit them over the head with it. And that's the case in Jules. And it is that we should live our life fully all the way through. And that there are opportunities for connection later in life. And we've all gone through COVID now where we weren't connecting. And now we're all we've had to re-enter into those friendships again when we were on Zoom all the time. And so it's a little taste of what it must be like for old people who are isolated and don't have those connections. And so it's really a story in which people find connection later in life. And what's interesting is that young people relate to it just as much as old. And I've been so pleased as we've done these sort of screenings around the country before it opens to see how many young people. I think a lot of it has to do with the humor. But it also has to do with the idea we all want to connect, and everyone feels that.
No question. I think that's really well said, and put the cherry on top of the cake. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with you, Mark. Like I said, it's been too long, but this one was worth for sure to wait. And it's really cool to see you, direct and come back with this creative, fun, and interesting film. I can't wait what's next for you. And hopefully we don't have to wait 5 years to talk again.
No, you won't. I'm sure we'll be shooting something after the strike, but put the word out to anyone who likes it, Jim. I know you love the movie. Put the word out to your viewers, anybody who loves the movie. These independent movies, we don't have gigantic budgets, so it depends on word of mouth, and let everybody who sees it, who likes it, please spread the word.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure to do so. And like I said, the movie really is charming, and it really made me stick with it, and a very enjoyable experience. So all around terrific work, Mark, and good to talk to you again. And let's do this again soon.
We'll do it again.
All right, Mark, take care. Have a great one.
Jim. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
What the?